What if we told you your entire life is being directed by a story you didn't even know you were telling? Not a fairy tale, but a deep, invisible myth shaping every decision you make, every belief you hold, and how you see the world. Most people never realize they're living inside a script. But once you see it, everything changes. Let's be real. How many of us are still living the story our 10-year-old selves needed to survive? That story might have kept you safe then. But now, it might be keeping you small, unfulfilled, tired, stuck, repeating old patterns in shiny new packages. Personal myth isn't some poetic metaphor. It's real psychology, and if you're serious about growing, healing, or just understanding why you are the way you are, then stay tuned, as by the end of this video you'll learn how to identify your personal myth. Then, once you see it, you can unsee it. And that's when the real magic begins. Every myth has a creative side and a dark side, said Philip Zabriskie, chairman of the Jung Institute of New York. If you can find the core myth that illuminates a person's life, you have a powerful tool for psychotherapy. Psychologists Dr. David Feinstein and Dr. Stanley Krippner define a personal myth as a constellation of beliefs, feelings, images, and rules operating largely outside of conscious awareness that interprets sensations, constructs new explanations, and directs behavior. Translation: it's the internal story running your life, quietly shaping what you believe is possible, how you react to things, who you think you are, and what you think your purpose is. We all have one. It's the operating system of your psyche. And like any OS, it can run you smoothly, or it can glitch like hell. At its core, your personal myth tackles 3 gigantic life questions. Who am I? Where am I going? Why am I going there? And here's the kicker: you didn't choose your mythos. You absorbed it. From your family, your culture, your childhood experiences, the media you consumed, the wounds you carry. It grew inside you quietly, invisibly. And unless you dig it up and examine it, you'll keep acting it out like a script you didn't write but somehow got cast in anyway. It's called your mythos because your subconscious doesn't speak in spreadsheets or bullet points. It speaks in symbols, dreams, and stories. If you want to truly connect with your deepest self, you've got to learn its language. Metaphor, emotion, and rich, living imagery. What myth are you living is the haunting question Carl Jung asked himself. Here's how he described it. I suspected that myth had a meaning which I was sure to miss if I lived outside it in the haze of my own speculations. I did not know that I was living a myth, and even if I had known it, I would not have known what sort of myth was ordering my life without my knowledge. This was no academic musing for Jung. It was a spiritual alarm clock. He realized he'd been drifting through life under the spell of a story he didn't fully understand. That realization launched a lifelong quest to unearth the myth he was living, and to make it conscious. And that's what we're doing here. Imagine these archetypes and maybe you'll recognize yourself. But remember, these archetypes are invitations, not boxes. Most of us are a blend. Maybe you're a hero at work, a martyr in relationships, and a seeker in your inner life. The point isn't to label yourself. The point is to recognize the pattern, and then ask, is this story still serving me? You're the one who never quite felt seen. Maybe you had a sibling who outshone you. Or parents who praised results, not effort. Or teachers who only noticed you when you overachieved. So you became the fighter. The striver. The one with something to prove, not just to others, but to yourself. Your inner myth says, I'm only valuable if I'm winning. It's what got you through tough times. You hustled your way through school. You became the person who always delivers. Friends call you dependable. Bosses love your drive. But when you're not achieving, you feel lost. Lazy. Like a fraud. Rest makes you twitchy. You compare yourself to others constantly. You push through burnout because slowing down feels like failure. The heroic myth keeps you climbing, but it rarely lets you rest on the mountaintop. You're the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the one who remembers everyone's birthdays, stays late to help, and says yes even when you're screaming no inside. Your myth says, my worth is in my sacrifice. This story probably started young. Maybe you had to grow up too fast. Or you were taught that love had to be earned through service. So you learned to overfunction. You take care of everyone else, sometimes to avoid facing your own needs. It feels good to be needed. But over time, that need turns into a trap. Perhaps you're the one who organizes the office party again, even though no one helped last time. You show up for your friend's crisis, even though you're barely holding it together yourself. You say, I'm fine with a smile, while your heart's quietly breaking. Eventually, you hit a wall. The resentment creeps in. You start to wonder, does anyone even see me? The martyr myth gives you purpose, until it steals your peace. You've always had a wild streak. You questioned the rules before you even knew what the rules were. School felt suffocating. Authority felt arbitrary. You couldn't help but challenge the status quo, even if it got you in trouble. Your myth says, I'm only safe when I'm on the outside. This story may have begun with a sense of exclusion. Maybe you felt misunderstood, or punished for being different. So you owned it. You became the disruptor, the black sheep, the innovator, the one who won't be boxed in. And honestly, that's powerful. You've got vision, fire, edge. But sometimes that defiance costs you relationships, jobs, opportunities, because deep down, letting someone in feels like giving up control. Vulnerability is scary when your whole myth says, I don't need anyone. The rebel myth is electric. But without awareness, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy of isolation. You've always felt like there was something more, something deeper, something just out of reach. While others chase status or stability, you crave meaning. You're drawn to the spiritual, the symbolic, the mysterious. Your myth whispers, I'm still becoming. I'm not whole yet. Maybe you moved a lot as a kid, or never quite felt at home. Maybe you had an early spiritual awakening, or a moment that shattered your worldview. Whatever the trigger, you started asking the big questions early. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the point of all this? You devour books, podcasts, plant medicine journeys, sacred texts. You're a pilgrim of the soul. Although, you journal obsessively, but struggle to take action. You start projects that feel aligned, then drop them when the next aha moment hits. You're always searching, but rarely landing. The seeker myth is rich with insight, but it can also keep you on a perpetual quest, always reaching for the next mystery instead of grounding into now. These myths aren't random. They emerge from your life, your upbringing, your heartbreaks, your victories, your wounds. And they come with patterns. You replay the same situations over and over, like a song stuck on repeat, until you realize, wait, this is my myth. And I don't have to keep playing it out this way. Here's why this matters so much. Your myth is your GPS. Even if you don't realize it, it's giving you directions every day. It tells you where to go. Take this job. What to avoid. Don't get too close. And how to survive. Hide your feelings. If your myth is empowering and aligned, amazing. But if it's outdated or rooted in pain, it's time for an update. Now that you know what a personal myth is and how it's messing with your life, or making it magical, how do you actually find it? Zoom out. Way out. Look at your life like it's a movie. What's the plot? Who's the main character you, always trying to become? What's the recurring conflict? What kinds of endings keep showing up? Seriously, sit with these big questions. Who am I underneath the roles I play? What am I always chasing, and why? What do I always struggle with? Write whatever comes. Don't overthink. Your myth will start leaking through your words. Track the patterns. Look at your love life, your career, your friendships. What's the theme? Do you keep attracting the same type of partner? Do you always quit right before the breakthrough? Do you downplay your ideas because you're scared to shine? Boom. That's your myth talking. Ask, is this still true? Maybe your myth used to serve you. Maybe I must do it all myself kept you safe when no one was there for you. But is that still the case now? Can you let someone support you? Can you trust collaboration? You're allowed to evolve. Rewrite your script. Once you spot your myth, you don't have to stay in it. You can consciously choose a new one. You can decide, I am no longer the wounded child. I'm the wise warrior. I don't have to suffer to be worthy. I get to thrive in joy. I'm not lost. I'm unfolding. This is how transformation happens. You don't become a new person. You remember who you really are beneath the old story. Let's be clear, a personal myth isn't just a nice idea. It's the psychological and emotional scaffolding holding your life together. And you owe it to yourself to know what story you're living, and whether it's actually yours, or one you inherited, absorbed, or got stuck in. Carl Jung called discovering your myth the task of tasks. Why? Because once you find your myth, you find your power. You stop drifting. You start creating. So, ask yourself, with raw honesty and zero filter, what's the myth I've been living? And what's the one I'm ready to live now because you're the author, the storyteller, the myth maker. And this chapter, it's yours to write. Want to dive deeper into personal mythology? Check out our video, Are You the Hero or the Shadow? Carl Jung's Archetypes Explained. This video is part of our Awaken Your Inner Guidance series, so if you want to discover how to cut through the noise to hear your inner voice and intuition, check out our video on this.